everybody, welcome to Drive Thru Review 454. Today we're going to talk about Fleet Wharfside. Now you think this might be an expansion to Fleet, but it's not. It's a standalone game, and it's kind of sort of like a filler version of Fleet, but it doesn't really have much in common with the original game of Fleet, other than of course the theme of having sort of a fleet of shipping boats and a variety of captains going out and fishing and getting goods. This one is a little bit interesting. Let me jump into how it works, and then I'll come back and tell you what I think of it. Here's everything that you get in the game. You can see there's a variety of different cards. The first thing you're going to do is get a random captain, and these are pretty much the same. What they do is they'll tell you the sort of rank of cards. So there's a different seafood that you can catch here. So you've got king crab, a lobster, tuna, shrimp, and so on. And these are the cards that you can see represented here. Now each of these is going to give you a different bonus. So you can see he's going to get a bonus for tuna, lobster, and swordfish, and so on. And they give you the rank of these cards, which I'll explain in a minute. So these are sort of like the higher rank than the shrimp. And then you give you a little breakdown of the end game bonuses, which I'll talk about, or end game scoring. Now each player is going to start with one of these contracts and then two of these cards here. And these are sort of the currency that you're going to use to score points and play in the game. Now, you can do a draft phase where you get to choose from face-up contracts, and then you get two cards with that, or you can just kind of randomly draw them, however you want to do it. And the contracts are what you're trying to complete. So you can see, for example, this contract here, you need to have a lobster, swordfish, and a tuna, and you'll be able to complete it for 5 victory points. Now the game will end, depending on player count, if you completed 4 or 5 contracts. And then you'll total up your victory points you'll get from the contracts and some other things. But as you have these contracts in front of you, before you complete them, you actually get a special ability. So this says when this contract is completed, immediately draw the top contract from there and place it into your area. Whereas if I have this contract in front of me, you can see shrimps count as wild, so shrimps can act as any good. But once you score this, then that special ability goes away, which is one of the more interesting parts of the game. So how do you complete these contracts? And also I should note, we have some buildings here that are just worth straight victory points. They don't have any special abilities on them. Well, on your turns, it's very simple. You have two options. You can use the wharf, which are these cards here, or you can use the market, which are the cards up there. So when you use the wharf, there's a couple things that you can do. Well, the first thing you can do is you can activate any contracts that you have in front of you. So for example, this one just kind of automatically activates shrimps are wild. And then you can say, let's look at another one. For example, this one says draw the top good. If the good matches any face-up good in a wharf, keep it. If not, discard it. This one here, declare a contract, draw the top good. If able, immediately allocate to that contract. If not, discard it. So what does that mean? Well, one of the things that you're going to do on your turn is take cards from your hand and then stick them underneath a contract that you have here. So in this case, if I had a swordfish in my hand, I can go ahead and stick that under there. Now you can allocate 1 or 2 goods to any contracts that you have in front of you. And so that's the thing, that's how you pay for them. So as soon as you have filled this up and with the requirements, then you're going to flip that over and you'll have scored it. Now there are also goals here. So this says complete a contract with 3 goods. And so the first time you complete a contract like that one with 3 goods, you'll get this. The next person to do so will get less points. You can still get 1 point. And there are other ones for like up to 5 goods and so on. So you want to try to get these as soon as you can. The last thing you can do on the wharf is actually store king crab. Now the king crab is not used to fulfill any of these contracts, but you can stick them in a pile and then you'll get 1 point for each of those at the end of the game. Finally, you end that turn by drawing 2 cards from either of these wharfs. So I can take 2 from here or 2 from here. Now you have a hand limit of 6 cards, but you have to choose one of the wharfs to draw from, and then you'll refill cards into that wharf. Now the other option, of course, is to use the market, and that's how you get new contracts and also these buildings here. And to get them, you're going to look at the cost here. So these are going to start on the A side, and this is telling you, okay, this costs 3 swordfish. Well, not exactly. So what that is you need to have 3 of a kind of a swordfish or higher. So if you look here, you can say, okay, this is swordfish, so I could have 3 lobster or 3 king crabs, and I can also buy that. Now the other thing is you can also buy that if you just do 4 of a kind. So if we did 4 shrimp or 4 tuna or something like that, then you can also buy that. Now after you buy that, this is going to come over and we're going to get this new one in front of us here. This is going to say market 4. So you're going to look at that, then you're going to rotate that market. So the cost is going to vary and change up as you come out with new contracts. Now when you pay for something, you can always do a 2 for 1. So if you did 2 swordfish, this can count as anything. So 2 for 1 is always a wild, and of course you can also get wilds here that can count as anything. Now the thing to keep in mind is you can only have 3 face-up contracts in front of you, so you're only ever going to have 3 active abilities. And finally, whenever you go to the market here, you can't draw new cards or anything, so it's 2 separate discrete things. You can either buy a new contract, or you can do this whole wharf phase, which I just talked about. Now, the last thing to note is when you get one of these buildings here, you can pay for it just like here. So in this case, it would cost 4 tuna or 5 of a kind, or anything higher than tuna, 4 of a kind, and you get the building in front of you. Now, the building's always going to stay up in front of you, so it's going to eat up one of your slots of those 3 contracts you can have available. And you can never have more than 2 buildings in front of you. And then, like I said, depending on the number of players, once somebody completes 4 or 5 contracts, and the buildings, I should say, do count as a completed contract, then the game will end. You'll get an equal number of turns, and then you'll total up your points. And these cards here tell you, obviously, what you're going to get for points. So this guy's specialty is shrimp. So 1 victory point per shrimp on completed contracts. So all those contracts you completed that had the shrimp under them, you get extra points for those. You get the victory points just for the contracts themselves. And the buildings, of course, 1 point, like I said, for king crab. 2 victory points for each contract that you have that's not finished. And then 1 victory point good from the largest set in the hand. So let's talk about that. So let's say this was my hand here with these 3 cards. So my largest set is the swordfish because I've got 2 of those. So I would get 2 extra points. So you can kind of hoard up a little bit of extra points there into your hand. And the last thing is you're also going to get points from these trophies. And then this one here is you get 3 points for most king crabs. So you get 1 point per crab plus possibly the extra 3. Okay, so that's Fleet Wharfside. What I think of it? Well, it's a very interesting game. I do enjoy it, but it kind of fits in this strange spot. It's almost like a really pure filler, like a for sale or something like that. But it has like a little bit extra on top of it, which is pretty interesting because you have this whole idea of getting contracts and you want to get them for the special abilities, but then you can also just try to get the ones that are worth more points. And those are invariably going to cost more. So there's a kind of an interesting balancing act, getting some contracts and then fulfilling some of them, but maybe leaving some of the better ones that are going to score more points if you do fill them, but leaving them open until you get to the end of the game where then maybe you try to then kind of score them at the last minute, which is really what the game kind of comes down to. Now I do like the kind of the wharf drawing. This, I don't know, it's just a simple mechanic, but I've never seen that where you could, okay, you know, most games is like, oh, you do your turn, you draw some cards. This is like, well, you kind of, it's kind of thematic too, because you're like, oh, go fishing in the north or the south, and then this is what your catch is, and then you return with your catch, and then you can use that to spend and, you know, get cooler stuff. So that's kind of a cool mechanic, mechanically and also thematically. And there's a real interesting sort of slow game versus a quick game kind of thing where you're trying to just get stuff and then, you know, just draw cards and then score buildings and get, you know, and then worry less about the special abilities. But then, you know, you kind of have that back and forth between deciding which way to go with that. And then you have the, you know, the bonuses kind of keep the game moving and push it forward. So the games aren't ever really going to take more than probably 30 minutes. Once you play the game like once, then it really picks up. We played this several times at lunch and really enjoyed it. We're all big fans of Fleet in my lunch group, so we like the kind of revisit of it, and it's really a completely different game than Fleet, but it somehow still works with the theme. I always thought Fleet worked really well with the theme. Fleet is one of my favorite games of all time, in case you didn't know. So this is kind of like a nice sort of filler version of Fleet, but it's not really like Fleet at all. But it sits in a cool, interesting space, like I said, between that sort of no thanks and, you know, for sale kind of thing, where you think you're just like, oh, I'm kind of playing like Rummy, I'm drawing cards, just trying to collect sets of things to score and get these points. But then you just have that little special ability type of thing added on to it, which I think is kind of a nice bridge from some of those like for sale type of games into like a San Juan or Fleet, the real Fleet itself. So you've got that kind of cool thing of the hand management and all that stuff, but I think it's really goes a long way to having like an intro to that style of game, which really doesn't exist, at least, you know, off the top of my head. Like San Juan is kind of like my go-to, but even that one, that's I think is an excellent game, and really sort of repels anybody that says they can kind of solve it, especially when they have the expansion, you know, at least in a couple of plays. That one like really supports a lot of plays, is my point. And I think this one kind of does that too, but it's much lighter than that style of game. So I think it fits. It's going to have a good niche, I think, in a lot of groups where, you know, hey, I want to play like a complex multi-use card game, but I've got some new players or something. This really is going to hit that. So if you've got that kind of group, I would really recommend this for that. Okay, thanks.